Welcome to Saturday Mindfulness Meditation, wherever you are. I hope it's a beautiful day. Who have we got here? I see Jerome is there, right? I see Mayumi. I see Alex, Benoit, and then it goes off the screen. But welcome, whoever's there. I have to admit it was a tough week. A lot going on in the world, and I thought about today's class, and I procrastinated. That word procrastinate, it's to put things off. I put off figuring out what I was going to talk about today. I just wasn't feeling it, And you'd have to be living in a cave not to know that there's been a lot of problems here in the U.S. The least of which isn't the issue in Minnesota with George Floyd. So all of that, I think, has been compounded. Our sense of outrage, our sense of sadness, our sense of how could this happen is kind of been compounded by the pandemic, because we have been so interconnected by the pandemic. In other words, I think that we can clearly see that no matter what country we're in, or no matter what world we live in, no one's immune from possibly catching this COVID-19 thing. So I think it's brought the world a little closer together. So that when we witness something like what we saw this week with Minnesota, it's perhaps hits home harder. So all of my meditation practice this week has been kind of, I guess, disrupted a bit by what we've been going through. Perhaps for you too, I don't know. But before we get started with our little chat today, let's get sitting and let's get settled. Let's get the breath relaxed and the heart rate down, and let's get fully present on the cushion. So however you choose to sit, whether it's in the cross-legged position or sitting on a chair, let's think about making sure that we have 3 points of contact. Knee 1, knee 2, and seat 3. There are 3 points of contact. The knees have to touch the floor, whether it's sitting in the lotus or half lotus position, or in the seiza position. The seiza being where you take the cushion and place it underneath like this. And you can have your knees then have solid contact with the floor, and your seat is upright and higher than the knees, and the back is straight. Okay, that's a very good posture. A lot of people prefer seiza position to the full lotus. If your hips aren't very flexible, then your knees are going to rise up. And when the knees rise up, we can't give our hara the support that it needs, because the hara has to come forward, you see. So if I turn sideways, this would be very poor posture, because the back is curved the wrong way. I want the back curved this way. And the hara is forward, okay? This is only possible if the knees are touching the floor. Unless you're so flexible that the knees just fall open. And that isn't the case with me, That's not the case with most people, but if you're lucky enough to have the ability for your knees to fall open, well, then that's great. You probably, in that case, don't even need a cushion. And chin is tucked a little bit in, neck is stretched a little bit, and our hara is full, and we're sitting on the cushion with a sense of weight, like like feeling gravity pulling you down into the cushion, being aware of the gravity pulling you into the cushion. And with every out breath, we relax deeper and deeper and deeper into the cushion. Then the hands, as we discussed before, are in the cosmic mudra. So the dominant hand, your right hand if you're right-handed, or your left hand if you're left-handed, goes underneath and holds the other hand, and the thumbs just gently touch, very lightly touch. Don't press. Just make a circuit. Close the circuit from yin and yang. Close the circuit from left and right by gently touching. The eyes just fall naturally on the floor about 3 feet in front of you. And we're in complete Zanshin, so we're aware of the room around us. We're not going inside. We're staying fully present. In mindfulness meditation, there is no inside and no outside. There just is this right here, this. So sitting, we're not running away from this. We're staying with it. We're staying on the cushion, staying with the breath, staying with the posture. So let's do quiet 5 minutes before we begin. Bring your body left and right. Let's even out our energy a little bit. Coming to the center. Sitting straight. Take a deep breath in and out. Letting go of any tension in the shoulders. Feeling the breath going in and out of the nose. Breathing in, the breath is cool in the nose. Breathing out, the breath is warm in the nose. Resting in the cushion. Following the breath. So make sure you're in a comfortable position. As I was saying earlier, as we started, I wasn't sure what to do today. I felt like almost as if there's so much going on. What use is doing any of this in one way? That's kind of how I was feeling about it. But as I began to think about what we could talk about and what we have been talking about in terms of mindfulness meditation and the four objects of mindfulness, one of the thoughts that came to mind for me was this idea of compassion. What is compassion? And how does compassion evolve out of mindfulness practice? What role does mindfulness training have in terms of compassion? Because we often hear and hear the notion that um, mindfulness and meditation and yoga and all of these great things makes the world a better place. But we'd love to know how does that actually happen? When we see so much negativity going on around us, we wonder, well, what does any of this matter? Well, firstly, we have to ask the question, well, what is compassion? I guess in a simple way of talking about compassion, we could say it's being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes, to know what it is that another person is going through, and to feel somehow connected to that person through that situation that they are going through. And it's very much a natural state for humans. I mean, children just have compassion straight away. Okay. Even animals sometimes show compassion. So it's a natural state, having compassion. And if it is a natural state, then it begs the question, well, why don't more people have compassion for others? That's a very good question. I think the most obvious answer to that is that they lack any sense of connection, any sense of interconnectedness to others. So we could say that a person who has no compassion is a very selfish person who has no feelings for others suffering or no understanding of their situation. And we could judge that person and say, they're a terrible person and all that stuff and, whatever. But the truth is, they're just a human being like anyone else. But the difference between that person who has no compassion, and someone with compassion, like I said, is that they have no ability to make a connection with another person. Now, where does this connection come from? Some people naturally are self-aware. In other words, some people are naturally able to touch the things going on for them inside that open up a sense of self-compassion, right? They know instinctively that there are things happening for them in their life that deepen their sense of self-compassion. And then it's easier for them to recognize those causes of suffering or causes of unhappiness in other people. And then they make that connection. Then they feel for that other person. But when you are so wrapped up in your own egocentric world, clinging or attached to the idea of self, tribe, race, nationality. When you seek identification in those things and you cling on to those things, you can't have compassion because you immediately set it up as self and other, right? No interconnection. So how does this happen? Why does this happen? The answer is, I feel from my own practice that it's from a lack of self-knowledge. It's from a lack of knowing what is going on with you. It's a lack of self-compassion. We can say that the hatred behavior towards others, violence towards others, whatever it is really hatred and violence towards yourself. So we could say that people that have no compassion are really self-haters. They have no self-knowledge and they have no sense of self-compassion. So with mindfulness meditation, studying the four objects, we're looking for self-knowledge. We're looking for the ability to get close to our own discomfort, get close to our own anxiety, to our own fears. This is fundamental. It's fundamental. So the natural state of a person who is self-aware and aware that they have happiness, aware that they have sadness, aware that they are part of an interconnected family, compassion is easy for them. It's easy. But what's not easy is when you have compassion and you witness other people behaving in a way which is so selfish that the temptation is to actually lose compassion even for those people. So self-compassion starts with being ready to admit and being ready to open up to the discomforts, the attachments, and the very human failings that we all have, and to forgive ourselves for those, and to come back into our breath and into our body and be with ourselves and give ourselves compassion. So we have a practice in the Tibetan tradition of mindfulness training, which they call Tonglen. Tonglen, that's a Tibetan word. It literally means sending and receiving. Sending and receiving. So we practice three methods of sending and receiving. The first method is to forgive ourselves, to go into our own sense of discomfort or our own worries or our own failings, to breathe them in, and then to breathe out a sense of peace and calm and forgiveness to ourselves and compassion towards ourselves, and sitting in our own body with our best self forward, back straight, powerful, wide awake, aware of our breath, and just breathing in our own fears, our own pain, our own sadness, our own whatever it is that we have going on for ourselves, and then breathing out forgiveness, healing, peace, and calm. So this is the practice of sending and receiving for yourself, because it begins with yourself. We can't have compassion for anyone else unless we have it for ourselves. So let's take a moment now and just practice a little bit of sending and receiving for ourselves. Okay, so take a posture. It doesn't have to be a formal posture if you aren't feeling up to it. Don't beat yourself up. Just be comfortable. And the practice is feeling the breath going in through the nose and out through the nose. Breathing in, you visualize or imagine the kinds of discomfort or problems that you're having. Maybe it's maybe you've lost a job or you've lost work and you're feeling kind of sad about that. You notice it, you breathe it in, you become aware of it, and then you breathe out and you fill yourself with white light, healing white light. Let the white light come through your whole body and let it just come into the room around you. And just bring a little smile to yourself. Just smile and say, it's okay. Everything's good. You're just bring that sense of forgiveness and happiness and calm and peace to yourself as you breathe out every single time. Now, as you're breathing in, you may change from time to time. It may be one specific thing, like maybe you've lost a job, and then the next breath it could be, I really hurt my knee in training, and it's just really bugging me. Well, then you breathe that in, and you breathe it out, and you breathe healing light to that place on your body. Or you might be going through a particularly difficult time with a person who's causing you some mental anguish or whatever it is. Well, then you breathe that in and you breathe that out as well. So it's a continuous practice, not necessarily fixed on one specific aspect. You can change aspects or you can stay with one aspect. But just breathe in the darkness and the discomfort and breathe out the light to yourself, just to yourself. Okay? All right, let's begin. Take your posture. And follow the breath as you do it. Just settling in. Take a deep breath and out. Following the breath, keep your posture straight. Are you daydreaming? Follow your breath. So, compassion for others begins with compassion, self compassion for yourself. And Tonglen practice for oneself is a very useful method of developing more self compassion. But following the four objects of mindfulness, following the body, following the thoughts and feelings, and following the interaction of phenomenon and how it affects our meditation practice, are wonderful ways of getting to learn more about what makes you tick, what makes you you, and to notice and to find what are those circles that keep going around and around for you that don't bring any peace or calm to your life, that cause some disruption to your life, and recognizing those things and giving yourself the permission to sit with that on the cushion, noticing the breath, is a great act of self forgiveness. And in recognizing ourselves and our own suffering, we can get in touch with and make a connection with those that are also suffering or also have difficulty in their life. So you look at a situation like the George Floyd situation that has happened here, the murder of George Floyd, and the policeman that has now been arrested for murdering him so mercilessly in the street. You have to wonder, how could someone do that in broad daylight just in broad daylight, as casual as if one was just looking for your keys in your pocket. I mean, that's the way he was. Murdered that guy who couldn't breathe on the ground, and you wonder, how is that possible? Well, the answer is very simple. It's possible because that policeman did not have any connection whatsoever to George. He felt George was like another species. He didn't see George as a human being. He certainly didn't see him as a human in the sense that he thought himself to be. So that policeman,
Hello.
oh, Siri, you're definitely not human. So why is it that he felt that way? Well, the cop has such a huge ego. He has invested so much time running away from his own problems by building up a huge ego around his sense of being white, his sense of being a policeman with a badge, his sense of having the power of having a gun, his sense, all of these things have been packed in tight into his mind, into his soul, into his complete being. And he cannot have any compassion for anyone else. They don't fit in with his world. Now, why is that? Do you suppose that a person would become so egocentric, that would become so solidified in their own little tiny world, that they can't feel any compassion for anyone outside of it? Well, the answer has to be that they are in deep suffering themselves. They're running away. And what are they running away from? Well, they're running away from the thing that most of us are running away from, which is the real uncomfortable fact that nothing is permanent. Everything changes, and we're going to die. That sounds very heavy, but it is a fact. And we all deal with that in different ways. And the cowards in this world deal with that by putting up a huge front like that cop. But the truth is, he's running away from his own impermanence, his own lack of ability to accept change, and just the basic way of being a human being. That's what's going on here. It's like those people, you look at those people out there, not wearing a mask in public. Why would you go into a supermarket or go into a store, or any place where it's difficult to socially distance and not wear a mask? It's very selfish. Well, then why are people being selfish? Because they feel no connection to anyone else, no connection and no compassion for anyone else. Why do they not feel any compassion or any connection to anyone else? Because they have no compassion for themselves, and they are disconnected from themselves. They are running away from their own pain and suffering and fear. That's what they're doing. They're ignoring the truth that we are all connected. We are all connected in this world through this little germ that we cannot deny. So they're running away from their own impermanence. They're running away from the fact that they can get sick, that you can make them sick. So they have no compassion. Mindfulness meditation, studying the four objects of mindfulness, sitting on the cushion, becoming aware of our own stuff, recognizing our own stuff, getting comfortable with it, coming back to our breath, learning what's going on for us. What's going on for us is the same thing that's going on for every single other person. That's how we're all connected. It's the same stuff. That's how we're all connected. We breathe the same air. That's how we're all connected. We're experiencing the same impermanence and change, huge disruption in our world. That's how we're all connected. And we're all getting older. We're all going to get sick and we're all going to die. That's how we're all connected. So, in understanding that, we can have more compassion for ourselves and for others. But as long as we run away from that stuff, we'll never have any compassion for anyone else. So let's practice a little bit more Tonglen. This is the second way to practice Tonglen. The first way is to practice it for oneself. And the second way is to practice it for a family member or a dear friend. So we all know people who are suffering in their own way. And they may be close to us in our life. They may be a brother who's suffering from mental illness, or it could be your mother who's suffering from very bad arthritis, or it could be your partner who is worrying about financial issues. Whatever it is, you have a partner, you have or you have a family member that I'd like you to call to mind now. Whoever that is, just bring them up. See their face in your mind. And you will see two faces in your mind. You'll see the breathing in face, and you'll see the breathing out face. The breathing in face is the face of that person suffering, or having anxiety, or being mentally confused, or being angry, or acting out through alcoholism, or whatever it is. You're seeing that face of that person as you breathe in, and you're bringing it into yourself. And as you breathe out, you're sending calm and peace to that person, and you're seeing a different face. You're seeing their face being calm and peaceful and happy. So you visualize the face being in discomfort and distress, breathing in and breathing out. You're sending white light and healing to that person. And as you send the white light and healing to that person, you're seeing their face smiling and being happy. So this is the second way of practicing sending and receiving to a family member or to a dear friend or a partner. So take your posture, keeping the back straight. Following the breath, just loosen out the back again, bringing the body left and right together, observing the cosmic mudra, breathing in, and begin. following the breath. So sitting comfortably. So having compassion for oneself, leading to compassion to other people is one of the main objects of mindfulness practice, and one of the main benefits, I suppose. Even if your goal or your even if you're not sitting in order to have more compassion, it's going to happen anyway. It's just natural. It's naturally arising. Just as it is natural to realize how connected we all are through mindfulness practice. So compassion, true compassion is not selective. What I mean by that is it's easy to be compassionate for the people in our own tribe, the people who dress like us or talk like us or eat the same kind of food as us or think like us. That's that's easy, but there's something wrong with that kind of compassion. It's not true compassion because true compassion comes from understanding that as a human being, we're going through the same stuff that every other human being is going through. It doesn't matter what tribe you're from, what the color of your skin is. So that kind of compassion is not selective. It's all encompassing compassion. So the question is, can you have compassion for that cop? the guy that murdered George Floyd. Is it possible for you to have compassion for him? It's very tough, isn't it? Very difficult. I'm not suggesting that he deserves compassion, but I'm just pointing out that compassion is not supposed to be selective. I was raised as a Roman Catholic, which I am not anymore, but I was raised as a Roman Catholic. And I remember it just brings to mind a quote that Jesus was supposed to say when he was dying on the cross, where he said, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Now, think about that. How is it that someone can forgive those that are killing him? That's true compassion. That compassion comes from deep understanding of oneself, true mindfulness, deep mindfulness, understanding the interconnected nature of the world and of humans, and seeing yourself in others. Nobody's perfect. Come on, if you think you're perfect, there's something really wrong. You know, when you're sitting and you're meditating and you're mindful, that there is some pretty negative stuff going on. No one's perfect. Okay, so then when you begin to understand that you're not perfect and that you suffer and that you're afraid of impermanence, you're afraid of death, when you're seeing all those things and the wrongdoings you've done, it's natural to have more compassion for others. As long as you are cut off from yourself, you'll never have compassion. Now, I mean, is compassion obvious? Well, it is obvious in a sense that for some people who show compassion, like the Dalai Lama or Mother Teresa or, you know, Nelson Mandela, or, the really big people in our world that, clearly have compassion because they're doing things that are obvious. There are so many compassionate people that aren't doing anything in particular, but are really connected and are really feeling compassion for the world and for everyone. You don't have to do big things to have compassion. Just a simple act of sitting on the cushion, being mindful, practicing sending and receiving can have a very powerful effect on the world. So, having compassion for those that are doing wrong is very difficult. But if you're a parent and you have a child who has done something really, really wrong, really terrible, you will feel anger, but you'll also feel great compassion because you're so connected to that person from him being a child of yours. So you'll feel that compassion. In a way, that's kind of selective, like I said. But true compassion, we can extend that same feeling. Like, we should be angry at the cop that killed George Floyd. We should be angry at the system that created the cop that killed George Floyd. We should be very angry about it, and we should want to change it. I'm ashamed of it. But George Floyd isn't the problem. I'm sorry, the cop is not the problem. It's the system that's created him. And just see in yourself, is there any way that you could understand or have any compassion for that guy? It's very difficult. Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they do. It rings in my mind today. So, the final meditation today is the third method of practicing Tonglen, or sending and receiving. This third method now moves to uh, bringing in the suffering and the anxiety and the pain of the entire society, in our entire society, our entire world. Riots in Minnesota, you know, starvation in Africa, um, joblessness in Paris, whatever it is. It's everywhere. Okay, there's so many things. So what we're trying to do with the third method is to breathe all of that in for the world, and then to send out the loving, the great vibes, the white light to the entire world. So we move from the first method, which is the self, healing the self. The second method is working with sending healing and goodness to a loved one, a family member or a partner. And then the third is to the entire society, to the world at large. Okay? So breathing in, you'll visualize everything from the melting glaciers and the forests being cut down, to the riots in Minnesota, to cops beating people up, to whatever it is, all of that. And then we'll breathe out peace and calm and white light to the world. Okay, so let's try and do that now. So let's take your posture. Be comfortable. You don't necessarily have to sit in a strict posture for this. You can practice this sitting in a chair or lying on the floor if you wish. I prefer myself to sit in the correct posture. And so observe the cosmic mudra, back straight, just loosen again a little bit, the spine, settling into the body, feeling the cushion, feeling the weight of your body on the cushion. Breathing in and begin. Thank you for joining me this morning. Um, take your experience off the cushion, practice some more self compassion, and observe the mindfulness training as a way of getting closer to our own stuff, knowing more about what's going on for us so that we can get more self compassion. And in that way, then we can bring more compassion to others. So I wish you well, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your weekend, wherever you are. And let's get comfortable with change and impermanence. So thank you so much for joining me. Let's bring our hands together. Gasho.